Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, The New Order, the ruin as the Reichkommisar at Ukraine. Now, last video, well, Eric Koch is looking to go on vacation. I'm sure nothing bad will happen there. Now, since we're here, let's go ahead and do a little lore reading. Sharkov. The empty lots between Sharkov's Saxon barracks are like bare ribs that suggest the ancient presence of flesh. The blank spots are the spots the Germans didn't bother to stitch up after the war ended. They were culture houses, theaters and schools, care homes, bars, and narrow parks. There are shortcuts on the way to work now. But the Charkov tractor plant, now rebuilt, is still the cornerstone of the city's economy. The Reichskommissariat needs tractors, trucks, rollers, subsoilers, swathers, and combine harvesters to trim and renew the wan yellow flatness. Charkov machines are in almost every farm in the Reichskommissariat, but most of the harvest is sent west to Germany. In Rostov, rake-thin Ukrainians work and eat day to day. Time blurs, bones ache, days are measured on strikingly moldboard stacks. The blocky machines the Ukrainians make serve to remind that nothing occurs in the city except by the German dispensers. This is why Charkov still makes tractors, and is why Charkov will probably still make tractors tomorrow. Well, let's do a visit, for old time's sake. Eric Koch was not always the Reich's principal authority in Ukraine. Before he pacified the savage land, he was a Gauleiter and Oberpresident of Eastern Prussia, titles which he still holds to this day. Indeed, Koch was quite fond of visiting his old stomping grounds, and in some years even spending more time in his Gau than the Reichskommissariat. And then those filthy Slavs invaded Moscovian. Just how many years has it been since he last saw Königsberg? Too long. The third phase of General Plan also has been coming along just fine. His men can handle things on their own for a little while. Sure, some are worried about travel back in Germany and here in Kiev, but it shouldn't be anything to worry about, and we can resolve these concerns once he returns. Destiny's work will soon come to an end. Day and night cycle got turned on. Annoyed Koch scornfully repeated his desire for a luxury flight out of the nearest airport to his secretary, feeling as though he was talking to a brick wall. Again, he repeated the date and time of his departure before impatiently closing the door. The secretary thought for a moment. 3 days was not a lot of time to schedule a flight, but the work would be worth it if it meant a few days free of Koch's abuse. On any other day, that secretary wouldn't have told her husband that Koch was going to fly far, far away for the first time since she had started working for him some years ago. Yet she was excited for the lengthy reprieve, and her husband had taken her out after getting a raise. On any other day, that secretary's husband wouldn't have told the bartender that Koch would soon be leaving for Prussia. Yet he drank more than intended, and let his tongue grow loose. On any other day, the bartender would have been so generous, but soon he bought the happy couple around and shared the news with the other patrons. However, just like beer from a broken mug, information seeps out of where it was supposed to stay. On any other day, with any other secretary or with any other Reichskommissar, it might have been a different story, but on this day a person walked out from that bar, finished his drink, and mumbled something about how even Koch was abandoning this hellhole. And on this day, a dispirited Bogdan Antonenko, returning from an unpleasant trade, happened to pass by the man and heard a slur speech. Bogdan turned to the man and asked him what he meant. 3 days. He's flying back to Prussia, the bastard. And on this day, Bogdan Antonenko realized he had a chance to change history. The skies, O brethren, smile upon us once more. Well, it looks like we can't cancel this focus. So Eric Koch never thought that time could fly as slowly as the last 72 hours had. He thought each minute stretched longer than the last, scheming in the shadows to keep Koch in Kiev for as long as possible. His office work as of late had been dreadfully dull, more so than usual, as nothing interesting or new had happened in the days prior. A chauffeur knocked on his door, already carrying his baggage. Despite his elation that the day's departure had finally arrived, Koch curtly informed the chauffeur that he would be driving his own car, and that he only needed his bags moved. The chauffeur left, and Koch excitedly leapt as quickly as his age would allow him after the young man, eager to become airborne. Aside from the increasingly warm disposition of his office staff, nearly nothing had happened in his office since he had announced he was leaving. It was slowly driving Koch mad, but he kept his composure, knowing that soon, very soon, he would be aloft and away from this miserable place. Happy thoughts were on Koch's mind as well. The cliques he loaded over abstained from the typical bickering. Distance activity reports had slowed to an insignificant crawl, and partisan activity was gleefully minimal. Had it been any other day, Koch would have noticed these quiet discrepancies and would have been disturbed. However, in a mere 45 minutes, it would no longer be Koch's problem. Not until he eventually returned from Ostpreußen. On any other day, Koch would have noticed a small crowd that had gathered to see him off, but he was beyond caring. As soon as the trunk was shut, Koch had shut his door and began to reach for his skis. On any other day, he might have waited for a brief moment to relish in his delight. On such a day, he might have heard the hushed ticking of a timer, mechanically counting away as with seconds and minutes and hours since it had been set. Alas, today was not such the day. Instead of hearing his car turn over, Koch heard the sharp click of the ignition, following by the deafening sound of a bomb igniting. So long. Kiev did not have time to grieve for its silent leader, nor Ukraine's time to cheer. New oppressors arrived in mad dash, breaking apart the crown of their king and building new empires from his bones. The Reichskommissariat, dying but orderly, was suddenly thrust into the madness. It started with a deputy. Lee Brandt wasted no time in taking Reichskommissar Koch's place as best he could, spewing the emergent's empty puffery that constituted his typical leadership. Citing precedent, citing order, he donned the uniform which had never been meant for him. Yet decades of irrelevance cannot be overturned in a day. Lee Brandt was a useless, vestigial figure, and had been for half a decade. For Braunagum, Lee Brandt's reforms were hollow, ready to be pushed aside by a new generation. For Ohlendorfer were actively damaging the threads of German society. To both and to many others in their factions, life under Lee Brandt seemed simply intolerable. So, forced together by circumstance, a diplomat and policeman forced Lee Brandt's hand. Together they came to the deputy with a plan to share power. As leaders in a temporary security council, Lee Brandt would head the government, but now was ahead of a larger body of leading German officials, of which a considerable number would be on the side of his newfound enemies. Lee Brandt did not even have time to panic. He simply smiled, winced, and signed off on papers. This was how Ukraine came to be conquered by all, yet governed by no one. No. One more failure. The illusion shatters, and the Reichskommissariat's hold on Ukraine has never been weaker. The Reich's vision of paradise has been set aflame, and the security council we add to our sword laws. Let's take a gander at this. Whew, look at that. Interesting indeed. Usually the Reichskommissariat kept Schandruck and Olobin far away from each other. Olobin, as mayor of Brest, worked only a few miles from Ostland's borders. The UNA was never deployed so far west. Its handlers feared defections to the Banderists or Democrats. Probably correct. Thus, the meetings between Schandruck and Olin were short and irregular, unusual punctures and too disconnected monotonies. This is why Olobin's request for a meeting in Brest seemed unusual. The discussion started out nicely. Schandruck and Olin walked through the isolated forest, talking about their lives, their posts, and most importantly, their woes. There were a few times a Ukrainian in the employ of Germans could complain. Schandruck felt a sense of ease, finally talking to someone he knew as a friend. It was only after they were deep in the forest that Olobin's mood suddenly shifted. Have you considered the possibility of working with outside parties? Schandruck paused, visibly uncomfortable. So that's why you want to meet me outside. I certainly see myself retiring someday, if that helps, the general said wryly, uncertain if such a thing was even possible. If the world permits it, I'd love to return to a life of memoirs instead of, well, this. But while I can, and I think do, implore Kiev to do better, I can't jeopardize whatever progress I've made here by venturing off on heroics. I do not know if they do, a random guy. I think it's just one path right now. We're about to find out, though. A blow-in turn towards the general, disappointed. You could save Ukraine, you know. Or I could kill it. I'm in my 70s. I'm too old to be making rash decisions. And I'm 63. A better Ukraine isn't going to fall into our laps. One way or another, we're going to have to create it. Or I'm going to fight for it, anyway. Get more free civilian factories. Beautiful. We still need more hospitals in Kiev. I'll build a hospital in Kiev. Welcome to the stream, by the way, random guy. How are you doing? Well, here we are. The longest war. For decades, the Nazi, boundless in his brutality, has been crushing Ukraine underfoot. For those same decades, his dedicated partisans of Ukrainian Socialist Soviet republics have been fighting them. Through setbacks, deaths, and campaigns of terror, we endure, we thrived. The Republic is still the strongest single force, resisting the Reichskommissariat and their collaborators, and holds high the flag of the internal revolution. We cannot lose, for if we do, Ukraine is lost. We will die before that happens. We will make doubly sure that the German dies as well. I got this guy, Georg Liebrandt. In his years as deputy, Georg Liebrandt has always dreamed of a moment like this. To see Koch killed by his own hubris, to see every folly of the old regime laid bare. The concept of such a dramatic collapse had clung as spiteful fantasy for the deputy. Yet his dreams always ended with his domain as a stable and functional, a product of his scientific reforms. They never ended like this. Shoved into the twisted throne of Erich Koch, Liebrandt never realized the degree of mismanagement at every level of the Reichskommissariat. Yes, the deputy had seen the Ukrainians as natural allies, but the scale of their insubordination outmatched even his most dire scenarios. Where he imagined himself the sole reformer of Koch's broken system, he now must share power with two fellow visionaries who shoot down every one of his proposals. Even now, he hears talks in the halls of the hopped-up deputy who will be swept away as soon as the war is over. Insubordination, it seems, has outlasted even the Reichskommissariat itself. There's no time for reform. There's no place for change. As Liebrandt looks around his dying colony, he can only think one thought: 23 years. More than 2 decades of badly formulated plans, ill-conceived rhetoric, and petty infighting have left Ukraine in this moment. Woe to the man who's left to pick up the pieces. Now we have the Rosenbergite tendency leading us. Interesting little sub-ideology. Let's check this out. Within all movements, great and small, there are those who find themselves in a struggle against orthodoxy. Some are great men struggling against rising systems of evil, ardently defending rights and liberties. Others, like Alfred Rosenberg, fought only for their own petty politics. Yet even years later, when the trends are clear and the dust is settling, their ideas, policies, and conceptions persist. The Rosenbergite tendency is not an organized movement, but a disparate collection of characters who, to one end or another, see the ideas of Alfred Rosenberg as the ideal German policy towards the East. To Rosenberg, a Baltic German, the East was more than land to settle, but a set of nations to uplift and purify, to use as a wedge that can fully destroy the Russian nation. The man himself is long forgotten in Germania. His policies retain weight in the East, where his vision of the Reichskommissariat has not yet fully dimmed. Intellectuals and thinkers still heed Rosenberg's word as a kind of pragmatic humanitarian policy which might have prevented the maelstrom grip in the East. Yet make no mistake, its believers follow Hitler in every other aspect. They are chained to the Reich and its violence as much as their colleagues. Rosenberg's word, no matter how sweet, is not an escape. Interesting to know. Ooh, now it's switching to propaganda. I like this. Look at that. Okay. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Alright, we got an okay amount of... We have a decent amount of control over here. I think we'll work on consolidating control Probably in these two southern regions. Let's disrupt some infrastructure. Here, I think over here we'll distribute some propaganda. Ooh, color changes even. And I'll hold out on attacking the occupiers real quick. How interesting. Okay. I like how this has changed up. Oh, and we can steal machinery now. That's actually funny as hell. Interesting. Okay. I'm getting the hang of this. Maybe. Possibly. Partisan activity skyrockets. It's now obvious that the attack on Reichkommisar Koch was not an isolated incident, but rather the commencing action of a wider campaign of destabilization. Reports have reached us of an explosion of main activity throughout the state, occurring not only in contested areas, but in regions previously considered pacified, suggesting a disturbing level of both planning and subversions. Garrisons are being overwhelmed, and there are insignificant forces available to effect immediate reinforcements. Worse yet, calls for assistance to Germania or otherwise are not being returned. Supplies are beginning to run low. There can be no doubt that the state is now engaged in a struggle for existence, and it's far more likely that the situation is going to get worse before it gets better. We must prepare ourselves, as best we are able to, for what is to come. Low government control. Well, that's good for us. Sucks to suck for these other guys, but... Position groups emboldened. Damn right we are. Alright, so we have our own stockpile down here, it seems. We'll do an attack in Kiev, which worked pretty well, actually. We'll save the attacks, I think, for the bigger regions. We'll do some of the smaller attacks. We'll distribute propaganda here, and then we'll disrupt infrastructure in these other places. I think that's going to be the best place. Oh, that's my best bet. Idea of what to do. And now we have the Call of Freedom. In our hearts, we know that the Ukrainian people are still communists, but the recent setbacks have been hard, and with the setbacks suffered, we also all know that many, even most of them, have given up hope. And that while setbacks suffered, we all know that many, even most of them, have given up hope. We must act to change this, to show them that we remain, and that Ukraine is not lost. We will reach out in print and voice and remind them that freedom from German tyranny is possible, and even probable if they support us. The Ukrainian Red Army is the most powerful force in the country, fighting for them, and if they will only join us, we can achieve victory. That victory will have to wait... We'll have to come in another video, because I gotta leave it here, folks. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you have any comments or feedback, leave in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get and appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Check out my various links down in the description box below. Hit the sub button for notification bell to keep updated with all the uploads as they come out. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. I thank you all for watching, my friends. My name has been Mr. Dogbot333, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye now.